Welcome to Outlaw Woodworking. Today I'm going to show you how I made these fish cutting boards. And this is a solid walnut, maple, and cherry cutting board. It's about 12 by 11 and it's about 1 3/4 inches thick. And it has an epoxy inlay of a trout with a little scene in there. Anyway, let me show you how I made it. Let's get started. The first thing I do is pull my material off the glue rack that I glued the night before. And you can see I'm getting set up to glue a whole bunch this week. And this was the first one. Now this was going to be a new project. This was going to be the fish project, and right here I'm running it through my planer and getting all the glue off and making it nice and clean and level, flattening it out. I run that through about 15 times until it's looking good on both sides. I then take it over to my table saw, and because I'm going to use my CNC to cut out a V-carve in the middle of these cutting boards, I got to make sure that these dimensions are perfect. So the first thing I do is cut this thing in half, and I'm going to use my my little T-square and clamp that on there and run it through the saw, and that'll be perfectly square. I can then take it off and use my fence and cut them both to the exact same size. It's important that they're exact same size, that way I could batch out two just as quick as I could batch out one on the CNC machine. Once I get the two boards cut perfectly, I get out my digital calipers and I write down the dimensions of all of the two sides and how thick it is. Okay, once we have our material figured out, first thing we need to do is come over here and create a new file. And the dimensions we have are 11.7280. Our height is 9.856. And our thickness, 1.9120. Okay, we're going to do a standard V-carve, and material position will all stay the same, and hit OK. Okay, the first thing we need to do is import the picture that we're going to use. And I have already got it in here. We'll open that up. Now we're going to go back over to the little bird, trace bitmap, and we're going to do black and white. And preview and apply. And we're going to close that. Now we're going to delete the actual picture. And there's what we're left with. Now I've learned that these type of pictures, first we'll ungroup it. And then we'll highlight everything else and get rid of it. Now we're going to zoom in and make sure there's nothing in here that we don't want, which happens sometimes. I think I'll get rid of some of these little, just to make it a little cleaner. Okay, the nice thing about this one is we really didn't have to do too much to this image. So now we're going to group it back together. We are going to go up here and center it on our project and see if it's big enough. I would say that's pretty big, but we could make it a little bigger. All right, let's go with that. Now what we need to do is do our juice tray. So we need to create a rectangle, and it's got to be the same size as our cutting board, 7280. Oops. 7280, and height is 9.856. Go ahead and create. We'll close that. We'll highlight it and go over to our centering tool and center it on our project. Now what we need to do is create an offset. And usually I do 1/2 inch, but I think I'm going to do 0.65 inwards and offset. That'll give me a little more room for my router bit when I router the outside. So we'll go ahead and delete that original one. And that's it. That's our project right there. Pretty quick and simple. Nice looking mountains. And this trout's going to be good. I got a request to do a trout, so I thought, or a request to do a fish. And since I live in fly fishing country and there's a lot of trout, I thought that would be a good deal. So we'll go ahead and the first thing we'll do is the V-carve. Go up here to V-carve, hit the V-carve. We'll leave the start depth. All this can stay the same. We'll put in our bit, 1502. It's a white side bit. I'll show a picture right here. And we'll hit calculate. Now let's preview this one. Now I think I'm going to change this start depth. So I'm going to delete this. Reset the preview. And we're going to try less of the start depth. We'll go ahead and put 0 on the start depth. Sometimes if you go too deep, it doesn't turn out as good. And then other times when you're doing letters and stuff, you need the depth. So let's calculate that. Take a look at that. Okay, see that looks a lot better. And the mountains are kind of standing out better. So we're going to go with that. Now the next toolpath we need is this outer ring. And that's our juice catcher. So we'll close that, and it's going to be a fluting toolpath. And we need our juice 1404 right there. That's the one that we have. So we'll select that. And we can leave all this the same. And I only like to do about 1/8 inch on the juice catchers. I used to do 1/2 inch, but I think it looks a lot better with the 1/8 inch. So we'll go ahead down here and put our tool in, 1404, and hit calculate. And preview. And there it is. That's our fish cutting board. Okay, let's take this over to the machine and get this thing cut out. I'll see you over there. The first thing I do is clean off the table. I had shot some vinyl nails in on a previous project, and you don't want anything on that surface. You want it to be kept really nice. I'm using Rockler hold down clamps, and I'll leave a list in the description of the stuff I use. Right here I'm going to home the machine. Once the homing's done, I'm going to go ahead and load my bit in here. This is the 1502 V-groove, 90-degree V-groove by Whiteside. I'll leave a picture right here. I get that tightened up, and then I proceed to do the XYZ. Once the XYZ is done, I do a spindle warm-up, and then I run the program. I left the dust shoe off so you could see it running through here. And this is my new product, the Trout. Now all the products that I make are available at outlawwoodworking.bigcartel.com. I'll leave a link right here. And yeah, this goes pretty good. It's a little slow because of the detail in the landscape, in the mountains and stuff, but it really came out nice. This is 4 times speed, and there it is. I end up running 2 of them since I have it all set up. All I have to do is hit start and cut another one. I found that it's just as easy for me to cut 2, 3, 4, however many I want, rather than just do 1. Next up, it was time to do the epoxy. Now the first thing I do is wire brush any little frays or anything coming from the V-bit, and I clean all those off with this little wire brush. And I'm using Super Clear, and this is a tabletop epoxy. You can pour this stuff about, they say only a 1/4 inch, but I've poured it 3/8 to a 1/2 inch and I've had no trouble with it. Right here I'm going to mix up a 1-to-1 ratio. The epoxy is always harder to pump out than the actual hardener. The hardener comes out real easy, and for some reason the epoxy is so thick it comes out a little harder. Right here I'm doing about 2 ounces, and that should cover both these fish. I start out using a red dye, and I ended up mixing 3 colors, I believe. A red, a black, and a blue. And it turned out really nice. I like the color of it. I was trying to maybe imitate like the color of a fish out in the wild, and it came out okay. I was really happy with it. I mixed it for 5 minutes. The room temperature is 70 degrees. It's really important to have your room temperature. Right there I put a little green in it. The room temperature is really important. And then mix for 5 minutes. Right there I squeeze in a little bit of yellow and then a little more red. Once I get the color the way I want, I pour it out, trying not to pour too much over. It just means more sanding for me later if I put too much on there. Once I get both of them poured, I get my torch and I torch out all the air bubbles. The next day I get some 60 grit and sand off the bulk of the resin, the epoxy, and then I switch over to 100 grit, 220 grit, and then I run my Porter cable router around both top and bottom. This is a little 1/4 round on this router. I then take some hand sandpaper and clean off. First I clean off some of this burn marks from the table saw. I then take a hand sandpaper and clean off some of the burn marks from the router and do a little sanding in the juice catcher also. And that's it. These things are ready to go. I then put some rubber bump stops on the bottom. That's something new I started doing, and it seems to be nice for setting on the counter and stuff. I then use some mineral oil. This is mineral oil mixed with coconut oil and some beeswax, and I oil them all up. You can really see the detail in the fish, and the mountains and stuff inside this fish. Thanks for watching this episode of Outlaw Woodworking. I hope you enjoyed the Trout cutting board. And if you're interested in any of these cutting boards, we do have a little store. I'll put the link right here. It's outlawwoodworking.bigcartel.com, and we've got some simple little things that we make, but they are high-end, and we take a lot of pride in making them. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe, like the video, and I will see you next time. Later.